Ignore a city complaint to move a nuisance vehicle and you may find an extra charge on your property tax bill. Disregard a city letter to clean up garbage or trash, and the city can do it and bill you. Overlook a complaint from city inspectors about graffiti on your property. Pay no attention to an order to remove snow or ice in a timely manner. Neglect a city warning to remove weeds encroaching on a public right-of-way. Ignore orders to board up a vacant building. The city will take care of it and put the cost on your property tax bill. The Administrative Review Appeals Board hears from citizens who appeal these and other decisions. 5 members and 1 alternate appointed by the mayor, common council, and city attorney, not to consider whether a law is correct, only whether it was fairly implemented.
And the board's purpose is really to make sure that citizens have due process when dealing with various departments within city government who issue and levy citations or fines against citizens for various problems associated with their properties or some other kind of issues. So we are really the last resort for a citizen to come to if they've been fined by a various department to see if they can't get their money back. A lot of times citizens will come to the board and try and advocate their position based on the fact that the ordinance is incorrect or the ordinance is improperly written or for some reason is just a bad law. And we often tell these citizens that that board is not the place to argue that case. That would be the time in which you'd go to your local alderman or you would appeal to the mayor to somehow change the law that created this situation that the citizen is in right now.
Department of Neighborhood Services inspectors like Henry Carter inspect and/or write orders on over 20,000 complaints a year for that department alone.
Well, basically what happens is we've received a complaint from either a citizen, a referral from another department, an internal referral. Something has led our inspector to come out to the property. What they do is essentially determine whether or not either if it's a vehicle problem, that the vehicle is a nuisance vehicle. What then they do is write up the vehicle, put a placard on it. If the person calls and wants to appeal it, they can at that time. We can either listen to their appeal and grant them an extension or deny the appeal at that time. We follow through with taking pictures, sending it for a tow, for removal for tow, and then the vehicle is removed and we send them a bill basically telling them that the property owner is responsible for $224.23 for a nuisance vehicle. And at that time then their only recourse is to send an appeal letter to the Administrative Review Appeal and then come in and try to convince the board that somehow we did something wrong in the process. Either we wrote the order to the wrong person or something else. I mean, they come up with a lot of different excuses as to why. As far as the litter is concerned, it's the same process. We receive a complaint, we document the violation, we send an order. If the order is not acted upon, we will take pictures, send it in, it's sent out for bid, low bid gets it, they clean up the property, the taxes, the bill is added to the tax roll, and then at that point in time the person appeals that to the Administrative Review Appeals Board. By somebody not doing what the order tells them to do is basically saying that they don't care about the property and it's forcing us to eliminate the nuisance, and we have to recoup the cost. That's why we put the charges on the tax roll. We're trying to improve the quality of the neighborhoods, and by having trash on the property or abandoned vehicles, it's sending a negative message out to the community. And by cleaning this up, obviously you want to hopefully draw new people into the neighborhood, maybe build on some of the vacant lots, and improve the quality of the neighborhood is really what we're trying to do. If citizens would get out and clean up their properties without having us to come out and do it, that would help us out tremendously.
A dispute over compost piles between the city and a citizen was before the board recently. It resulted in the city adopting a new ordinance regulating compost piles. Collection of solid waste in the city brought a number of complaints to the appeals board this year. A new solid waste fee was approved as part of the 2000 city budget to partially offset the city's collection costs. It's based on the number of dwelling units in a building. As seen at the board's July meeting, a number of people objected to paying two fees for their duplexes when one of the units was not being rented. Their appeals were denied.
As you may be aware, the solid waste fee is a new fee in the year 2001, passed as part of the 2001 budget. The solid waste fee is $11 per quarter per unit as defined in the ordinances. And dwelling units are defined through the city assessor's office. Mr. Van Duzy, as a number of other people, unfortunately, have duplex properties, and they are assessed as duplex properties. And certainly we accept...
Then how come the one next to me is a single family?
Certainly
to the north of me.
We accept Mr. Van Duzy's word that he does not rent the second unit. However, the fee is not levied on the number of containers that one receives or the volume of garbage in any way placed out by an individual. It is strictly on the number of units for a property. It's important to say that even with one unit, the cost to the city, the cost that the sanitation division is expending on this property is greater than the amount the gentleman's even paying on both units.
Right.
The street in front of this house is swept, whether somebody is living upstairs or not. If it has an alley, the alley is swept, the leaves are collected. Lots of services are provided to properties, whether they're in effect occupied or not.
While the board is the last place to appeal decisions within city government, residents with complaints can go to circuit court.
We would be the final step in terms of having to deal with the city hall structure, but if we were not to grant an appeal to a citizen, they could take it to circuit court, but most citizens don't. I mean, that becomes very expensive. You usually have to hire an attorney, you have to go before a judge. You know, this is really, for most citizens, their last chance to get their due process.
Danger. Vapor harmful or fatal. Flammable liquid. Vapors may cause flash fire. Do you pay close attention to the labels on many of your household products? The 350 Department of Public Works employees who pick up your trash and garbage wish you would.
Hazardous waste, household hazardous waste in particular, goes through every household. What's happening is that the household hazardous waste, and many stuff that is not only household hazardous, is going into the residential waste stream. When that's picked up, you have a potential for the people collecting it getting injured. You have a problem with it contaminating our water and contaminating our environment.
In addition to all the usual unpleasant materials found in the containers, workers have discovered dangerous chemical combinations, explosives, unspent shells in the garbage. Often it's the common products we use every day that can create havoc with the collectors.
Gasoline, oil, acid, maybe a battery. You stick a battery in a cart that you don't see, and then when you run it up and do the compaction of it, it'll blow up. Anything that can pop open, blow up. People throw away their own lawnmower, you take it, there's gasoline left in it, stuff like that. I don't think they're so much careless as they don't understand. They don't understand what we go through and what the job entitles. And I always said, they should follow us for a day and they'd learn more.
With a lot to pick up and the need to cover a lot of territory each day, the collectors can't always take the time to look for potential problems.
Basically, you just come by and you grab the cart and you hook it up and dump it and go. There's times where you maybe flip a lid back and you'll see something, and maybe I'll take it out and set it on the side, or usually you just say the heck with it and dump it. It could be buried in the middle of the cart. If you open the lid back and you see it on top is one thing, but usually they hide it.
With the possibility that hazardous waste materials are hidden within the garbage, the collectors are especially careful when it's compacted.
Yeah, that's why you got to stand off to the side, because some things do explode and blow out the back. Some guys have gotten sprayed with a lot of stuff, so you just got to kind of stand off to the side, push the buttons, and, you know, dump it and go.
I've had gasoline hit me. I've had oil splash out. There's sometimes you just can't avoid it. I mean, if it hits and it's compacting, even if you're standing off to the side, it hits the cart, it splashes out, it hits you, it'll get you.
The kinds of products that can get them can be found throughout your home.
We're talking a lot of the more normal stuff, such as acids, bleach, ammonia, and a lot of the problem that you get is when you mix bleach and ammonia, you get chlorine gas, which is a deadly gas. Or if you look at your own garage, you have fertilizer, diesel fuel, which is the same things that was used in the Oklahoma City bombing. We've had 2 to 3 hazmat incidents per year, which involves the Milwaukee hazmat team and fire department, which is significant. It has caused, I've had burns on the faces from acid. I've had materials such as hydrofluoric acid, which is extremely toxic and poisonous, potentially get into the waste stream. Fortunately, the injuries have been minor, but in places like New York, there have been fatalities among sanitation workers for the same type of activities.
State law requires the use of so-called sharps collectors for disposal of needles, syringes, and lancets, which are often mixed in with household garbage and recyclables. These sharps pose a real risk, exposing the worker to infectious diseases.
With sharps or needles or any type of intravenous equipment that's using, those should be given into a sharps container. They're available from any of your pharmacy. They're also available if you call your district ward yard. Well, they'll direct you where to get them. Milwaukee Health Department is an excellent resource on disposal of these. Again, with communicable diseases, you want to make sure that your needles and other things are properly contained.
There is a solution to this problem. The Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District collects household hazardous waste. More than 1,100 people brought their materials to State Fair Park last April for the first of 11 mobile site collections that will be held until October. For information on the next one, or the 2 permanent collection sites in Menominee Falls and Franklin, call 225-2066 or check the district website at www.mmsd.com. The city has 2 convenient self-help centers for disposal of waste motor oil, used antifreeze, and batteries. So follow the directions on those household products we all have and dispose of them properly.
Job would probably be a little safer, I suppose.
First of all, if people would just learn what to do with the stuff and not put it in the garbage, and you know, we inhale it, it goes in our lungs, and you know, it goes in our eyes, it comes in contact with our skin, and if they would just do what they're supposed to do with it.
Anytime you throw something away, read the label. Understand what you're throwing away and realize the potential impact it's having not only on the environment, but on the people that are collecting it. We can together solve this problem and make for a better tomorrow.
Actually, it's a pretty good response from the people. They enjoy seeing us. Unfortunately, at first we're mistaken for police because they've been riding the bikes for a couple of years now at least. But once they get around to seeing the fire department logo and that and realize it's us here, actually people are pretty impressed that we're doing it.
Ray Groth and Susan Lucas are part of the newest team in the Milwaukee Fire Department. It's a team of firefighter paramedics called the Paramedic Bicycle Response Program.
Well, we provide the same kind of service that we would if we were out in one of the modular units. We carry the same equipment as far as drugs, where we can help for cardiac arrests, and also airway equipment where we can intubate if somebody goes into respiratory arrest. The only thing we can't do obviously is transport because of the bikes, and then we special call for a transport unit. My personal opinion, it's great. I think anything you can do to bring ALS care to the citizens of Milwaukee faster than you've been doing it before is a plus.
ALS is advanced life support, and the paramedics are ready for most serious medical emergencies.
And that need does arise probably well over 100 times throughout the summer season at these events. And these are only what we had put into that category of advanced life support calls. So these are more serious types of calls. It came about because we recognized a need at these special events where you have large groups of people, sometimes in a very broad or expanded area, and the need to get to a patient should that type of situation occur. It's hard to get through the crowd. Generally, our units responded either on foot or they respond with a fire engine, and that's a big piece of equipment. It's hard to get through the crowds or to a patient in a congested area.
That's great. It's like we can get in places that a vehicle could never get to, and our response time is probably cut in half at least. I think it's wonderful that we can get out in the public and let them see, what a paramedic really does.
Sure, we're able to get there much faster. I mean, sometimes even with the bikes, you get some good-sized crowds. They're hard to maneuver those through, but imagine trying to maneuver an engine or an ambulance through it if you're having some difficulties with a bike. But the accessibility obviously is a plus also.
We've gotten some tremendous feedback from people at the different events, Summerfest, the First Star Fireworks, where they've been. They just think it's an awesome idea, and especially when you look at the equipment that the bikes carry. They carry the whole line of advanced life support medications. They also carry automatic defibrillator on the bike, so they're able to defibrillate a cardiac patient. And when they find out exactly what these individuals on the bikes are capable of doing, they're very impressed with the operation.
With the defibrillator, if somebody goes into cardiac arrest, we can shock them, hopefully to bring back a heart rhythm. We can give a series of ALS drugs, epinephrine, atropine, also to try to help start the heart. And we are able to intubate if somebody goes into respiratory distress or arrest. More than likely what we do in situations here, though, are going to be to treat asthmatics and diabetics. The heat, nice weather like this can wreak havoc with that. Those seem to be the majority of the calls, and we do carry drugs and IVs so we can treat them.
Many of the 105 paramedics in the department have volunteered for the Special Bike Response Program. In addition to the more than 2,000 hours of study to become licensed paramedics, they must now learn bike handling and safety, and even study how to make minor repairs. The program is a one-of-a-kind in this state, one of just a few in the entire country.
Right now, I would say there's probably a half a dozen fire departments throughout the country that are using paramedics on bicycles during the warmer months of the year, at least. As far as the state of Wisconsin, this is unique in the state of Wisconsin, and the Milwaukee Fire Department has gotten several calls, not only from other departments throughout the state of Wisconsin, but also departments around the country who have heard that we have a program such as this, and they're looking for information. How did we start it? What type of equipment do we use? What type of training do our people go through prior to participating in this type of program? So it's unique to the state, but I think as time goes on, we'll be seeing more and more of it.
The Paramedic Bicycle Response Program, now in its second summer, is scheduled to continue at least through September to cover the special event season in Milwaukee.
And it really means that the City of Milwaukee and the Milwaukee Fire Department is providing a tremendous service, not only to the citizens of the City of Milwaukee, but anybody who's here visiting. And we have a large amount of visitors from outside the city, outside the state that come to all of these events. And I think it should be very reassuring to them to know that they have that type of medical support there should the need arise.
Anytime you can bring ALS care to the citizens faster, it's always a good thing.
The illustration on the poster calls to mind the solid homes in the Washington Heights neighborhood, accented with architectural details like stained glass.
What's nice about all the houses, including bungalows and duplexes, is that they're very solidly built. The craftsmanship is just incredible in these homes, the woodwork and the built-in bookcases and then elaborate ceilings, beam ceilings and things like that, and they're really very solid and very detailed.
The first thing that's obvious about it is that it has very substantial housing. But now I guess I would have to characterize it as much as anything by the people who live here. It's really a vibrant city kind of neighborhood.
A solid residential blend of urban and suburban between Washington Park and the highlands of Wauwatosa, the area dates to the 1830s.
And George Dousman bought the majority of it. This is back in 1839, I think it was, back very close to the beginnings of Milwaukee.
George Dousman's 250-acre farm covered much of the west end of the neighborhood, which stretches from Highway 41 to 60th Street, North Avenue to Valete. Developers began to subdivide the area in the late 1800s.
Now they sold a large parcel of land on the west side to a William Davilar, who was an architect, and the oldest house in the neighborhood that was actually built there is his original farmhouse. It's on 59th Street. It actually went through from 59th to 60th Street. And it was built in, I think, 1885, and it's very different. It's a sort of a Queen Anne style house. It looks very different from all the rest, which were built in the 20th century, really over a very short period of time in the early 20th century. And they sold the lots. It was all speculation, and they advertised things like "come out where the sun shines," and where the air is fresh and clean for your children. It was really out in the country. And the fact that there was a streetcar line, because the Pabst had a farm where now Washington Highlands is, in Wauwatosa, on the other west of 60th Street, and he engineered a streetcar line that ran down Lloyd, which was called Pabst Avenue, and that really gave people transportation into the city so they could live this suburban life out in the suburbs and commute into the city to work.
Washington Park along the neighborhood's eastern border has long played a decisive role in the growth of the area. It was designed by the same man responsible for Central Park in New York. Established in the 1890s, the park featured a zoo, a horse racing track, a scenic lagoon. Its impact on the surrounding area was profound, encouraging development of park-like boulevards and promoting middle and upper income settlement.
Pretty much a 20th century neighborhood. There are a few houses that are older than that, a couple of old farmhouses, and actually one house just across the street from mine, which was moved here from Washington Park when the park was laid out in the 1890s. But otherwise, by and large, the neighborhood was built between, say, 1915 and 1925. And as you go through the neighborhood, you're going to see a fair amount of similarity in terms of style of housing. There are a lot of Milwaukee bungalows, a lot of Milwaukee duplexes, and then along the boulevards, there are houses that are much grander. Some of them almost mansions, like the one that was built for the Trecker family from Kearney and Trecker, and then there were a couple of houses built one for William Harley, and two or maybe three even for the Davidson brothers. We now say of the neighborhood it's in the city and out of the ordinary, but for the first people who were here, it was kind of a suburban neighborhood.
Washington Boulevard and Highmount Boulevard were among two of the most prestigious addresses in the city. The gateway at Highmount and Lloyd is one of the most impressive man-made features of the area. It symbolized the exclusivity of the boulevard. Businessmen and industrialists who bought here were required to build a home worth at least $3,500. The pattern of residential development is reflected in the area's churches. St. Sebastian's moved into its present church in 1929. Mount Olive Lutheran moved here in 1923. St. James Evangelical Lutheran dates to 1924. And Union Hill Baptist Church, the former Bethel Congregation Synagogue, erected in 1921. Niskara is an Indian word for spring on the hill, and the current school building sits on or near the site of a spring, operated by George Dousman's son. The spring yielded 40,000 gallons a day. The school was built in the 1920s. North Avenue is one of two well-traveled commercial boundaries for the neighborhood. Valete Street on the south is the other for the area, which otherwise is residential from end to end. This could be the only commercial building left within the residential area.
Well, I've been here since April 13, 1937. And I still have a number of clients who come here who were here at that time. I did hair many people. I don't know whether I could mention names, but Liberace was one of my clients at that time. This is many, many years ago, before Liberace was a popular name.
Ed Angel is 91. Still works twice a week in the shop he operates with his son. A barber for 75 years, he still likes the neighborhood he first moved to in 1934.
It was very nice. Everybody tended their yards and kept everything nice and clean. And it's still pretty much that way now.
Wanting to keep the Washington Heights housing stock strong and the neighborhood clean and safe, residents formed an association 11 years ago.
And so the association started with interest in the housing stock and helping other Milwaukeeans identify our neighborhood as having great architectural value. But the other focus of the neighborhood is creating the sense of community and making people familiar with one another and the assets in our neighborhood.
Washington Heights was an established neighborhood by 1930, and much remains the same today. Residents hope to retain its character.
We own one of the lots as a park, as the association owns it as a park and tries to keep it attractive and open so people can use it as a green space in their community. And the other locations, we try to keep them clean and attractive and available should the right opportunity come along for someone to build in our neighborhood, but we keep it historically preserved too. But really, our housing hasn't changed very much at all over the years.
On the edge of the city, only minutes away from downtown, Washington Heights is, like other neighborhoods, a blend of old and new, more diverse than ever. The Norway maples, planted in the early years, continue to grow and form arches over many streets. Residents say those who just pass by on the freeway or commercial streets might be surprised.
I think it's a beautiful neighborhood to walk through. I think having Washington Park is a great anchor spot to start people with the idea of start walking through our neighborhood. And if you start walking through our neighborhood, you're going to see a great mix of architectural style, housing size, types of families that are living in the houses and what they're doing with their homes.
We've got a baby boom going on, and these are people who are coming in who are very historically sensitive to the houses that they're buying. They're restoring the houses where it needs to be done, and it's pretty exciting.
Oh, I think it's a real surprise. I've found that when people come to the house for the first time from the suburbs, from the North Shore or from the western suburbs, and they tend to be kind of afraid because they're coming into the city, and I can always predict the first words out of their mouths. This is such a pretty neighborhood, and it really is.